Hi there! Today I'm gonna tell you how I made this concept art using 3D modeling in Blender. I started with a quick pencil sketch. This is how it looked like, doodling fast, just to grasp the general idea and composition. Jumping into Blender. First I made a swimming pool. I'm using the Quick Toolkit add-ons for the first time. All useful links are in the description. Thanks to this add-on, for example, I can draw this wall with a lasso tool, just like in Photoshop. It's a thrill. Added a ceiling, started making a balustrade. And it would be nice to set up an approximate view from the camera right away, since I wanted to make a specific shot. Okay, it seems we need a longer pool, like the arms in this animation. In the quick shapes there is such a cool thing where you can draw vases and other art stuff just by outlining them. Took some time to decide on the baluster shape, but it was fun, so I didn't mind. Eventually I settled on a simple shape of a chess pawn. Used an array modifier. After that I decided to give the pool a more complex shape, something like steps, and added moldings along the walls and ceiling. Also, I made some moldings on a balustrade so it would look more architecture-ish, and checked my camera view, all good. Okay, the landscape. This is where we go big. So I made a layered landscape by using auto align and lasso and quick shape tools. And I put it far behind my balcony. Just look at this very long floor surface. Although the swimming pool room is upstairs, for the shot's sake it just floats in the air. Then, using the same lasso, I drew the outlines for the distant mountains and slightly corrected them with the proportional editing. Also with lasso, I sketched the hills between the mountains and the front terrain. I also used quick remesh tool to sculpt them easily, which I did, and just trimmed off the extra mesh. The same way I remeshed, smoothed and sculpted the front hill. Looking closer on a wall. I remeshed it, in sculpting mode painted some cracks, added rocky texture, with free ZBrush or brush pack made it even rockier and added more detailed cracks. Corrected the shape a bit and voila! The swimming pool. I used the Real Water add-on to add water fast and easy. I think it's time to add an HDRI, so something can be reflected in our water. And here I am choosing the water scale. To add tiles I used a Principal BSDF with brick texture. Created different material slots for the pool size and room floor. Use the same brick texture but scaled it differently. However, that was plain and stupid. So I opened Photoshop and via a mandala symmetry tool drew a few tiles using references. I've already posted a video about that. After making a pattern, I imported it as an image texture into my BSDF material. Also, I've decided to try another water. Played a bit with displacement and finally made it using a noise texture and a bump node. Then I mixed it with transparent BSDF and glossy BSDF using noise texture as a mask. Now to the walls texture. First I downloaded a random PBR stone material, made a balustrade brighter white color and added gold railings. Actually I grabbed gold objects from my other project, as I wanted to add a taste of ancient luxury, so I picked material from them. Created golden frames for the swimming pool and moldings everywhere else I planned. Then I painted an original texture for my walls in Photoshop and put there my sketch, just to add an old mural vibe. Mixed the newly painted material with the rocky one. Mapping was a little tricky, cause I had to find a good angle for the drawing. Overlay mode over stone texture finally created an effect I was aiming for. Well, this wall was too flat, so I sculpted it a little with cracks and a rocky orb brush. Texturing the landscape. I wanted the foreground hill to look a little sandy, but with grass on some parts, so I downloaded two PBR materials from Polyhaven and combined them using a noise texture mask, and chose the random pattern I liked. For the far hills, I picked a texture with grass and stones, so from afar it looked like forest and rocks. I was gonna paint over it anyway, so I wanted just a resemblance here, not accuracy. To the background mountains, I added rough sand material because oddly it created a rocky effect I wanted. Then, using texture paint, I painted over my foreground hill with water, basically creating a mask for my water material on the terraces, and made it a little glossier. Then I started to draw the vine climbing the walls. That was my first time using the quick curve tools, so I had to adapt to how it worked. Starting with a bigger creeper, I made the plant thinner and thinner while drawing across the wall. And I added an old wood material. Also, I wanted some of the plants to hang from the ceiling. I sculpted 4 mountains a little with different brushes to add volume, so the light would work better on them. Then I started to model a temple. Using a quick tool, I tried different curves to create a dome. Made it pointy. With help of circular distribution, I built columns and foundation. Added a few more domes and drew the towers. Sculpted a smooth descent from the upper terrace to the lower temple. I used a golden texture for the domes and a light stone for the walls over the temple. For the best effect, I closed the room from all sides so the light would reflect from the back wall and scatter around the swimming pool. I wanted to achieve a soft pinkish gold lighting, similar to the golden hour. Suffered some time trying to put the sun in right position, but in the end I settled on HDRI and created a background plane. And as usual added some fog for the atmosphere with principle to volume. Using ivy generator add-on I added leaves to my vine plant. More and more ivy. And here and there, more. Nice. Then I wanted to model the fat guys sitting in the pool. So I made one of them with bulbs, so she appeared a balloony Venus statue. I gave her a goblet and placed her leisurely in the corner. For skin I used just a simple shader with a sprinkle of noise. Then I sculpted her face with big cheeks and funny nose. I decided to add hair and clothes or accessories later in Photoshop. Then I sculpted it all together and worked on details. The same way I made the other one, but gave him a plate. This one will be male. I created grapes with cubes with subdivision modifier and using quick curve add-on connected them into one bunch. And added leaves with the ivy add-on. Then I textured the grapes using subsurface scattering and translucent material. Transparent material. Green, nope, violet. Hung a sun as a circle with a mission in the distance to not overcomplicate things. Worked on the balusters, sculpted a less perfect top and base. Here was a moment when I realized that I had another tower on my sketch. Put more details to the domes. Created a material similar to ice and using a masking texture paint mode added it to the rocks. I've also forgot to mention that I have this big water surface at the earth level of my scene. So I added gloss using bump and noise textures so it would reflect the sunlight with stripe-like waves. Then I thought, what the heck, scene is already heavy. Why don't I add some subsurface to my skin shader to make the characters shine in front of the sun a little with red ears and everything. So what else do we need in a nation spa? I figured towels, so I stole a few from my sea house project. Anyway, I had to use a cloth simulation to put them on surface more naturally. Then I added more plates and picnic stuff on an improvised table, sculpted fruits lazily with textured brushes and made pies. Then I wanted to draw a few birds, just the main features to add feathers and everything later in Photoshop. I used subdivision modeling method for this. They look very simple at this point. Made several big strokes with sculpting brush just to follow their volume. I placed two of them on a hanging towel, and the other one curiously looks into the vase. Added subsurface to the towel's material. Painted the birds red mostly, textured the fruits with simple shaders, and made the ancient gold more glossy. Then I worked with the roughness map for tiles a little bit, so some parts of the texture reflected the sunshine. Then I rendered a various passes to use them in Photoshop. Pass with dark water and wet skin, same but the skin is dry, without any water, and with another water, several mist passes, pass with stripy water made with bump, random color pass. And I put them all into Photoshop. First, I worked on my mist layers to add some contrast to pixelate them while drawing. I just copied selected pixels from current layer to the new alpha channel and made them white. This way, the white areas can be selected from the alpha channels panel by control-click. In some cases, it was more difficult. For example, I had to do some math with selections to get the piney leaves alpha. Then I copied parts of different rendered layers using freshly made selections to make them partially however I like it the best. For example, I didn't want my characters to be completely dry, but I didn't like them glossy wet either. I was struggling with water for a long time, as I couldn't decide which way was better. I used masks and various overlay modes to add a bit of transparency and to make them shiny. I sincerely spent too much time on this, but I suppose that's the process, embrace it. Then I started to work on hair. The woman appeared to have a bun. I painted it in front of the sun, with the sunlight coming through where the hair is less thick. Then I quickly sketched her face. I wanted it to be a little smug and relaxed, like she's having a really nice time. Then I tried other hairstyles on her. Who knew something would have suited her better? High hairstyles made of braids, even put there some gold. Small Sailor Moon thing there and even pierced her ear. Okay, it's time for the gold bikini. My idea was that she's living her best life, enjoying the luxury. So I wanted her swimming suit to be made of gold and precious stones. I attached everything together with golden chains. Here I got the idea of gems floating in the water, but it made them look fake, as they're quite heavy IRL. So later I decided against it. As a result, against the backdrop of all this luxury, I realized that a simple hairstyle looks more appropriate here. I painted more sun onto the skin beneath the suit and worked a bit on shadows. My favorite part, the fingers. Just joking, I hate it. Then I worked on a man with shadows and sunlights. Facial features immediately punctuated his happy state of mind. I love how his face turned out. He looks like he smacks his lips, relishing the moment. As my happy guys are sitting in front of the sun, it outlines their silhouettes with a bright backlight and kinda makes them pop. Some Photoshop magic here on the pool wall. And now gold accessories for a happy dude also. Here I had to become more creative as he couldn't obviously wear a beautiful gold bra, but I gave him enormous bracelets and a nice earring. While I was at it, I also highlighted the grapes on a plate. The massive geometric pointed necklace completed his look. I drew water on the terraces and refined the relief itself. The water must flow out from somewhere, so I drew a big tunnel. A hole formed with stones. The plants along the edge of the hill also became more detailed and highlighted. On the left side, the water is light and reflects the sun. I decided that when flowing out, the water accumulates in the lakes on the terraces and then pours down in waterfalls and streams. Lakes had to be inscribed in the relief, so I created bow-like craters. I wanted the architecture of the temple to be a little overgrown with greenery, so tiny details were added like plants hanging down from under the dome. I also slightly highlighted the elements with backlight. Mountains in the distance. I worked over the mountains in the distance. Blurred them a little. Well, I also blurred, but slightly less, the hills in the middle. I sketched the highlights with the lasso selection, and shady areas the same way. Tried different overlay options, but in the end it looked like a weird salad, so I abandoned this idea. Sometimes it's important to abandon a stupid idea, even if you spend a lot of time on it. Finally, I painted the details with a brush. It looked more natural this way. I've decided to slightly correct the outlines of the mountains, so I painted the background behind them. I made them sharper and illuminated with sun glare from above, alternating between light pink and light yellow. Middle hills. I drew more fluffy outlines illuminated by the sun from above, so that they resembled trees. The downside part I drew with fluffy dark strokes, as the forest often hides in the shadows near the water. Worked on the grass at the front hill and added more waterfalls, and some white water at the waterfalls' edges. In general, made the landscape more detailed. I also drew architecture. Added windows and slightly darkened the middle part of the towers turned from the sun. I diligently drew greenery on the columns and the columns themselves. Finished arches and stones at the base of the main rotunda. Now this temple does not look fake or like it's rough 3D. The balcony on a separate tower also went through several iterations. Then I highlighted the details along the edges, accentuated stone blocks. This is me struggling with the reflection of the water in the lower terrace. I worked with the reflection in the river, first painted the approximate upside-down landscape with white strokes and blurred it vertically. Overlaid the original layer on top to highlight the waves with stripes. And I decided to even enhance this effect by applying noise that is slightly blurred horizontally. I added more white water and highlighted the horizontal surfaces on the hill from above, so now the structure of the hill reads better, and added a bunch of little things. Looks like the view from the balcony is starting to turn into something good. If you look closely, the balustrade now looks computery and natural, because I was too lazy to move the UVs while working in Blender. But it's an easy fix with random textured brush strokes. I thought about how it would look if I made the balustrade a little lighter or darker. Slightly transparent pinkish marble glowing in the sun looked better, so I left it like this. The view from the terrace needed some work for better aerial perspective, so the foreground could stand out. I lightened the hill from below. I slightly colored the temple with more pure lighter colors. Or should I make the hill below darker? I gave the entire foreground more contrast and made it slightly darker. I wanted the water to aggressively reflect light, so I worked with blend modes, soft light and vivid light. Made the skin a little darker and glowing in the sun, and worked with water reflexes. Added a few more details on the water like small waves near their bellies. Gems are also slightly reflected and or visible underwater. And even more sunny skin contour. I illuminated the goblet with glare so that it also burned in the sun. Here was some kind of a mess, so I cleaned the leaves a little. What a cool face this dude has. His lips are like, More highlights for the god of the highlights. The plate also glares in the sun. Clear the shape of the leaves, a little bit of glare on the grapes. Everything should shine. Added more shadows to the bodies. Finished the baluster columns so that they varied a little and had this old marble feeling. Illuminated them around the edges. Fit the picnic items in warm color scheme by reducing the contrast. Birds should also glow, but it's time to make them alive. I imagined some heavenly breeds of birds with bright spots on their long tails. They turned out to look like phoenixes. At first, I added a little blue to them, but it complicated the perception and I almost removed the blues, except for those places where it made the red shine even brighter. Tails! Legs! Did I mention the birds should glow too? I wanted even more difference between the foreground and the view, so I lightened the background even more. Well, it's time to decide. The light bottom or the dark bottom? Okay, semi-light, something in the middle bottom. It remains to deal with the plants and the wall. The add-on gave out some strange wire branches, which I turned into normal thin branches and added more of them for naturalness. There was also a lot of meticulous meditative work with leaves, just a bit of picturesque randomness and refinement of the form. The contour of the wall should also be slightly illuminated, but just a little bit. More plants on the ceiling, accentuated a little the stones and cracks on them, and in general made everything more real by correcting 3D glitches. I darkened the ceiling and walls a little and put more highlights on the plants. I think it's done! Happy, relaxed people relishing their leisurely, luxurious life in a cozy ancient spa with a beautiful view painted with the golden hour sunlight. I think I'd like to join.